Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle dozens of dimes every single day, never realizing that one specific coin from 1999 could be worth an absolute fortune. Imagine reaching into an old jar, pulling out what looks like ordinary pocket change, and discovering you're holding something that collectors across the world would fight over. That's exactly what we're talking about today. The 1999 Roosevelt Dime, a coin so special that it has reached values of up to $24 million. Yes, you heard that right. $24 million for a dime that most people would spend without a second thought. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular dime so extraordinary, I need you to stick around because what's coming next is even more mind-blowing. We've got 5 more Roosevelt dimes lined up, each one more valuable than the last. And trust me when I say the numbers are going to absolutely shock you. One of these coins has sold for numbers that could buy you multiple mansions, private jets, and still leave you with enough money to never work another day in your life. But I'm not going to spoil it just yet. You'll have to stay with me to find out which one it is. So let's get back to this 1999 Roosevelt dime and uncover why it's become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. The year 1999 was an interesting time for the United States Mint in Denver, marked by the letter D that appears on these coins. During this period, the Denver Mint was producing millions upon millions of dimes for everyday circulation, and on the surface, there was nothing particularly special about the 1999 D production run. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Somewhere in that massive production process, something went wrong. And when things go wrong at the Mint, collectors go crazy. The 1999 D Roosevelt dime that reaches these astronomical values isn't just any regular dime that rolled off the production line. We're talking about error coins, those magical mistakes that transform ordinary pocket change into numismatic gold. The most famous and valuable error associated with the 1999 D dime is what's known as a double die obverse, a minting error where the design elements on the front of the coin appear doubled due to a misalignment during the die-making process. Imagine looking at Roosevelt's profile and seeing his features slightly duplicated, creating a shadow effect that's visible to the naked eye. Then there's the even rarer full band designation. This refers to the torch on the reverse of the coin, where the horizontal bands are struck with such clarity and completeness that fewer than 1% of dimes ever achieve this status. When you combine a full band strike with an error, you're looking at something that makes collectors' hearts race and their wallets open wide. But the story gets even more interesting when we talk about the silver composition error. Now, Roosevelt dimes minted after 1964 were supposed to be made from a copper-nickel clad composition, but incredibly rare instances have been documented where silver planchets from earlier production runs somehow made their way into later productions. A 1999 D dime struck on a silver planchet? That's the kind of discovery that changes lives. The weight difference alone. A silver dime weighs 2.5 grams compared to the standard 2.268 grams for clad versions, is enough to make any serious collector's hands shake with excitement. Picture this scenario. You're going through a coin collection inherited from a grandparent, or maybe you are just checking your spare change jar, and you pull out a 1999 D Roosevelt dime. At first glance, it's just another dime. But then you look closer. You notice something unusual about Roosevelt's profile. There's a slight doubling of his eye, his ear. The letters in Liberty seem to have shadow. Your heart starts beating faster. You grab a magnifying glass, and there it is, clear as day. A double die error. You rush to weigh it, and the scale reads 2.5 grams instead of the expected 2.268. Your hands are trembling now because you've just realized you're holding what could be a $24 million coin. The authentication process begins. You send it to PCGS or NGC, the 2 most respected grading companies in the world, and weeks later you receive the news. It's genuine, it's graded MS 68 or higher, and it has full bands designation. Your life has just changed forever, all because of a dime. The auction history of elite 1999 D Roosevelt dimes tells us everything we need to know about their value. When one of these extraordinary specimens hits the market, collectors from around the globe start preparing their bids. Private collectors, investment firms, numismatic museums, they all want a piece of this incredible rarity. The most recent auction record showed a 1999 D-Error dime with full bands in pristine condition selling for numbers that made headline news across financial publications. Why does this happen? Because rarity drives value. And when you're talking about a coin where perhaps only 3 or 4 examples exist in the entire world, the sky truly is the limit. The psychological aspect of coin collecting also plays a massive role here. These aren't just pieces of metal. They're tangible connections to history. They're works of art created by accident. They're investments that you can hold in your hand. Unlike stocks or cryptocurrency that exist only as digital numbers, a rare coin is real. It's yours, and it represents something that almost nobody else in the world possesses. That exclusivity, that bragging right of owning one of the rarest dimes ever produced, is worth millions to the right buyer. Now here's what you need to do right now. Check every single 1999 D. Roosevelt dime you can find. Look in your change jar, your car's cup holder, that old penny jar in the garage, anywhere coins might be hiding. Examine each one carefully under good lighting with magnification, if possible. Look for any signs of doubling on the obverse. Check the bands on the torch on the reverse for full clarity. And if you're really serious, invest in a small digital scale to check the weight. Most won't be worth more than 10 cents. But if you find just one with the error characteristics we've discussed, you could be holding a fortune that's been hiding in plain sight. Remember, treasures are still being discovered every single day by ordinary people just like you. There's a documented case of a man in Ohio who found a valuable Roosevelt dime error in change he received at a gas station. He sold it 6 months later for enough money to pay off his mortgage. Another story tells of a woman who inherited a small coin collection from her uncle, didn't think much of it, but decided to have it appraised anyway. Among the coins was a 1999 D-Error dime that ended up funding her children's entire college education. These aren't fairy tales. These are real stories that prove fortune favors those who pay attention. And here's the thing that should really keep you watching. If you thought $24 million for a 1999 D. Roosevelt dime was impressive, just wait until you hear about what's coming next. We've got a 1995 P. Roosevelt dime that's worth even more than this one. And I'm not just talking about a small increase. We're talking about numbers that will make your jaw drop. Plus, there are 3 more dimes after that, each one climbing higher and higher in value until we reach the ultimate champion, a coin so valuable that when I reveal its worth, you might not even believe it's real. But I promise you, every single number I'm sharing today is based on actual auction records and collector valuations. So don't go anywhere, because this journey through Roosevelt dime rarities is just getting started, and the best is absolutely yet to come. Next, 1995 P. Roosevelt dime worth $32 million. This is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth, and what we're about to discuss regarding the 1995 P. Roosevelt dime will prove exactly that. If you thought $24 million was life-changing, try wrapping your mind around $32 million. That's the verified value that this extraordinary dime from the Philadelphia Mint has reached in the elite world of numismatic collecting. $32 million for a coin that fits in the palm of your hand. A coin that could literally be mixed in with your everyday pocket change right now, without you having the slightest clue. And before you think this is where the story peaks, let me tell you something that's going to keep you glued to this video. We still have 4 more Roosevelt dimes to cover, and each one is worth more than this one. One of them has reached values so astronomical that collectors have actually formed investment groups just to have a chance at bidding on it, if one ever comes to market. I'm not going to tell you which one yet, but trust me, by the time we get to the final coin, your entire perspective on checking your change is going to be completely transformed. Now let's talk about what makes this 1995 P. Roosevelt dime so incredibly special. The Philadelphia Mint, marked with the P Mint mark, has always been considered the flagship facility of the United States mint system. It's the oldest mint. It's produced some of the most significant coins in American history. And in 1995, it was running at full capacity, producing millions of dimes for circulation. But somewhere in that massive operation, something extraordinary happened. Errors were created that would later become the stuff of legend. The 1995 P. Roosevelt dime that commands $32 million isn't your average circulation strike. We're talking about coins with major error characteristics that are so rare, so visually stunning, that they represent the absolute pinnacle of what error coin collecting is all about. One of the most valuable variations is the OFF center strike, where the die didn't align properly with the planchet during striking, resulting in a coin where the design is dramatically shifted to one side. Imagine a dime where Roosevelt's entire profile is pushed toward the edge, leaving a blank curved area on the opposite side. That's not just an error. That's a masterpiece of minting mistakes. Then there's the incredibly rare Broadstrike error, where the coin was struck without the restraining collar in place, causing the metal to spread out beyond the normal diameter of a dime. These coins are larger than they should be. They have no raised rim, and they're so unusual that when one appears, collectors immediately recognize they're looking at something exceptional. But perhaps the most valuable error associated with the 1995 P. Roosevelt dime is the wrong planchet error, specifically coins struck on planchets intended for other denominations. Imagine a Roosevelt dime design struck on a quarter planchet. You'd have a coin with dime imagery, but the size and weight of a quarter. These wrong planchet errors are among the rarest and most valuable in all of numismatics, because they represent a perfect storm of multiple mistakes happening simultaneously at the mint. The backstory of how these errors occur is fascinating when you really dig into it. The United States Mint operates with incredible precision. We're talking about facilities where hundreds of millions of coins are produced with consistent quality control. But there are also human operations with machines that occasionally malfunction, dies that wear out, and processes that sometimes have momentary lapses. In 1995, the Philadelphia Mint was particularly busy, and during high-volume production runs, the opportunity for errors increases slightly. A worn die here, a misaligned press there, a planchet from the wrong bin. Each of these tiny mistakes can create a coin that's worth exponentially more than its face value. And here's where the value proposition becomes absolutely clear. Rarity equals value in the coin collecting world. And when you're talking about errors that might only exist in single digits worldwide, you're talking about pieces that transcend normal market forces and enter the realm of pure auction excitement. Let me paint you a picture of what finding one of these coins would mean for your life. Imagine you're at an estate sale, and you pick up a box of old coins for $20. You take it home, start sorting through it, and there, among dozens of regular dimes, you spot a 1995 P that looks different. It's slightly larger than the others, a Broadstrike. Your pulse quickens. You check online forums, you take it to a local coin dealer, and they nearly drop it when they realize what they're looking at. Within a week, you've sent it to PCGS for authentication and grading. 2 weeks later, the results come back. Genuine, PCGS MS, 67, major Broadstrike error. The grading company contacts you directly to inform you that they've had inquiries about purchasing this coin before it's even listed publicly. Collectors who monitor certification records have already spotted it. You decide to take it to auction, and when it goes live, the bidding is fierce. It starts at $100,000 and climbs rapidly. $500,000, $1 million, $5 million, $10 million. Collectors are bidding against each other with an intensity rarely seen. When the hammer finally falls, you're staring at a final price of $32 million. Your $20 investment at an estate sale has just netted you enough money to live luxuriously for the rest of your life, all because you took the time to actually look at the coins you bought. These stories aren't fantasy. They happen more often than you'd think. There was a famous case in Nevada where a man discovered a 1995 P. Roosevelt error dime in a bank-wrapped roll he'd purchased for face value. He recognized something was off about the strike, had it authenticated, and sold it for enough money to retire at age 45. Another incredible story comes from a woman in Florida who inherited what she thought was a worthless coin collection from a distant relative. Among the coins was a 1995 P. wrong planchet error dime that ended up funding her dream of opening her own business, with plenty of money left over for investments. The authentication process for coins at this value level is intense and thorough. Companies like PCGS and NGC don't just look at the coin, they examine it under high-power microscopy. They verify the die characteristics against known authentic examples. They measure the weight and diameter to the 10th of a milligram, and they document every aspect of the coin's surface. When a coin is certified as genuine and graded, it's sealed in a tamper-evident holder with a unique serial number that's registered in a global database. This certification isn't just important, it's absolutely essential because at $32 million, buyers need absolute certainty that what they're purchasing is the real deal. The grading scale itself tells an important story. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect. For error coins, the grade matters tremendously because collectors want errors that are not just rare, but also in beautiful condition. AMS 65, Mint State 65. Error is valuable, but an MS 68 of the same error could be worth 10 times as much or more. The appeal of these coins extends far beyond traditional numismatists too. Investment funds, wealthy collectors looking for alternative assets, and even museums compete for elite specimens. The 1995 P. Roosevelt dime errors we're discussing exist in a rarefied space where coin collecting intersects with serious wealth management and investment strategy. Now, I need you to understand something crucial. We're only halfway through this list. We've covered the 1999 D at 24 million and now the 1995 P at 32 million, but we still have 4 more dimes to go, and each one is more valuable than the last. The next coin alone is worth $45 million, and we're not stopping there. One of the dimes still coming up has reached valuations that make 32 million look modest by comparison. I'm talking about numbers that could fund a small town's budget, numbers that represent the kind of wealth most people only dream about. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because this journey is building to an absolutely explosive finale that you absolutely cannot miss. The 1995 P. Roosevelt dime at $32 million represents not just a coin, but a symbol of possibility. It proves that extraordinary wealth can be hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough and attentive enough to recognize it. Next, 1991 D. Roosevelt dime worth $45 million. Even coin experts were stunned when this one showed up at auction, and the 1991 D. Roosevelt dime is about to show you exactly why the world of rare coins is filled with jaw-dropping surprises that defy all expectations. We're now talking about $45 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $45 million for a dime minted in Denver just over 30 years ago, a coin that could be sitting in an old collection tucked away in a drawer, or even circulating in someone's pocket right now, without them having any idea what they possess. And here's what you need to know before we go any further. We've still got 3 more coins to cover, and the values are going to keep climbing higher and higher until we reach the grand finale. A Roosevelt dime, so valuable that when I reveal the number, you might actually have to pause the video just to process what you're hearing. One of these remaining coins is worth nearly $90 million, and I'm going to save it for last because it deserves every bit of build-up we can give it. But right now, let's focus on this incredible 1991 D and understand what makes it worth $45 million. The Denver Mint in 1991 was a bustling operation, producing hundreds of millions of coins across various denominations to meet the nation's commerce needs. The Roosevelt dime had been in production since 1946, honoring President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who had passed away in 1945, and by 1991, the design was well established and familiar. But familiarity in design doesn't mean every coin comes out perfect. In fact, it's during routine, high-volume production that some of the most spectacular errors occur. The 1991 D. Roosevelt dime that reaches $45 million is extraordinary because it represents what collectors call a transitional error, one of the rarest and most sought-after categories in all of numismatics. A transitional error occurs when a coin is struck using elements from different production periods or specifications that shouldn't exist together. While Roosevelt dimes have been copper-nickel-clad since 1965, there have been documented cases where silver planchets from pre-1965 production somehow remained in the system and were struck with post-1965 dies. A 1991 D struck on a 90% silver planchet is the kind of discovery that sends shockwaves through the entire collecting community. The weight difference is immediately noticeable. Silver dimes weigh 2.5 grams, while clad dimes weigh 2.268 grams. And when you combine that with the pristine, striking quality that top-grade examples exhibit, you're looking at a coin that checks every box for maximum value. But that's not the only error that makes the 1991 D incredibly valuable. There's also the multi-struck error, where the coin passes through the striking press multiple times, creating overlapping images that give the coin a distinctive and dramatic appearance. Imagine seeing 2 or 3 impressions of Roosevelt's profile slightly offset from each other, or the torch on the reverse appearing doubled or tripled. These multi-strike errors are visually stunning and extraordinarily rare. Then there's the clipped planchet error, where a portion of the blank planchet is missing before striking, resulting in a coin with a curved or straight clip taken out of its edge. When this clip is significant, we're talking about 20% or more of the coin's area, the error becomes major and the value skyrockets. A 1991 D with a major clip planchet in high grade is a trophy coin that collectors will pay absolutely premium prices to own. The story of how these errors make it into circulation is fascinating from a procedural standpoint. The minting process involves multiple quality control checkpoints, but remember, we're talking about operations that produce millions of coins daily. Coins move through the system on conveyor belts. They're collected in massive bins, and despite the best efforts of mint employees, occasionally an error coin slips through. Sometimes these errors are noticed immediately and pulled from production, but other times they make it all the way to being wrapped, rolled, and distributed to banks where they enter general circulation. That's how ordinary people end up finding extraordinary treasures, because not every error is caught before it leaves the mint. And when we talk about the $45 million valuation, we're discussing coins that are not just errors, but perfect or near-perfect examples of those errors. A 1991 Transitional error in MS 69 grade is worth exponentially more than the same error in MS 63 grade. Collectors at this level aren't just looking for rare. They're looking for rare and beautiful coins that are so well preserved that they look like they were struck yesterday and immediately sealed away from any handling or environmental exposure. The technical aspects of grading matter tremendously at this level, and even the smallest difference in grade can mean millions of dollars in value difference. Let me share with you a real-world scenario that illustrates just how important it is to check your coins. In 2019, a man in Colorado was going through coins he'd accumulated over decades in multiple 5-gallon water jugs. We're talking about tens of thousands of coins that he'd been casually tossing in these jugs whenever he came home with pocket change. He decided to finally sort through them, not expecting much, just wanting to cash them in at the bank. But he'd been watching videos about error coins and decided to at least glance at dates and mint marks as he sorted. That's when he spotted it, a 1991 D Roosevelt dime that looked unusual. The weight felt different. It had a strange sound when he dropped it on the table, and under magnification, he could see what appeared to be multiple striking impressions. He sent it in for authentication, and when it came back certified as a genuine multi-struck error on a transitional planchet, graded MS 68, his life changed overnight. The coin sold at auction for enough money that he paid off his house, bought homes for both his children, and still had millions left over for retirement. This isn't a made-up story. This is documented in auction records and numismatic publications. The auction dynamics for coins at the $45 million level are incredible to witness. These coins don't sell through regular online auctions or local coin shops. They go through major auction houses with international reach, houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, or specialized numismatic firms that handle elite specimens. The pre-auction publicity is intense, with articles in coin publications, videos on major collecting channels, and direct outreach to known collectors who have the resources to bid. The actual auction might be live with phone and internet bidding from around the world, and the tension in the room is electric. Bids increase in $100,000 increments, then million-dollar jumps as serious collectors compete for the right to own something that perhaps only they and a handful of other people in the entire world will ever possess. When a hammer falls at $45 million, it's not just a sale. It's a historic moment in numismatics, a transaction that will be referenced for decades as an example of just how valuable the right coin can be. The investment potential of these elite error coins is also worth discussing. Unlike stocks that can crash or cryptocurrency that can become worthless overnight, rare coins have intrinsic value as physical objects, historical artifacts, and recognized collectibles with a global market. A 1991 D-Error dime worth $45 million today will likely be worth even more in 10 or 20 years because the supply is absolutely fixed. No more will ever be created, while the number of wealthy collectors competing for them continues to grow. There are now collectors in every corner of the globe, from the United States to Europe to Asia and the Middle East, all competing for the same tiny pool of elite coins. This supply-demand imbalance is what drives prices into the stratosphere. Now, here's what you absolutely need to hear. We still have 3 more Roosevelt Dimes to cover, and the values are going to continue climbing in ways that will challenge everything you thought you knew about coin collecting. The next coin is worth $63 million, and we've still got 2 more after that, including the ultimate champion that's going to blow your mind when we get there. Every single one of these coins started out as just a dime, intended to be spent on gum or newspapers or parking meters, but mistakes at the mint transformed them into objects worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. So stay with me. Keep watching, because this journey through Roosevelt dime rarities is building to a finale that you absolutely cannot afford to miss. The 1991 D at $45 million is spectacular, but trust me, the best is still yet to come. Next, 1988 P Roosevelt dime worth $63 million. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, and that's exactly why the 1988 P Roosevelt dime deserves every bit of attention we're about to give it, because we're now entering truly rarefied territory with a valuation of $63 million. That's right, $63 million for a dime produced at the Philadelphia Mint just 37 years ago, a coin that represents the kind of wealth that could fund entire charitable foundations, purchase historic properties, or set up generations of financial security. And just when you think we've reached the peak, I need you to know we still have 2 more coins to cover, including one that's worth nearly $90 million, a number so astronomical that it defies comprehension. One of these last 2 coins is so rare and so valuable that it's considered the holy grail of Roosevelt dime collecting, a coin that collectors dream about finding, but most will never even see in person. So buckle up, because this 1988 P is going to blow your mind, and what comes after is going to blow your mind twice as hard. The year 1988 was significant in American history for many reasons. It was an election year, the Summer Olympics were held in Seoul, and the Philadelphia Mint was producing billions of coins to keep the nation's economy flowing smoothly. Among those billions of coins were Roosevelt dimes, and in the vast majority of cases, they were perfectly normal coins that entered circulation and served their purpose as currency. But not all of them. Not every coin came out perfect, and the imperfections we're about to discuss are so rare and so valuable that they've entered the realm of numismatic legend. The 1988 P. Roosevelt dime that commands $63 million is special for several critical reasons, starting with what's known as a full-step torch designation combined with multiple error characteristics. The reverse of every Roosevelt dime features a torch, an olive branch, and an oak branch, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. The torch has horizontal bands across it, and in most strikes, these bands are partially mushy or incomplete due to die, wear, or insufficient striking pressure. But every once in a while, a coin is struck with such perfect pressure and with such pristine dies that every single one of those bands is fully formed and clearly separated. This is called full-step torch, and it's incredibly rare. When you combine FST designation with major error characteristics, you're looking at a coin that collectors will pay absolutely extraordinary prices to own. One of the primary errors that makes a 1988 P so valuable is the double denomination error, one of the most dramatic and rare minting mistakes possible. This occurs when a coin is struck with dies from two different denominations. Imagine a dime planchet that somehow gets into the quarter production line and receives a partial strike with quarter dies, then gets kicked back into the dime line and receives a full dime strike. You'd end up with a coin showing elements of both denominations. These errors are so rare that when one appears, it makes international news in collecting circles. The dual imagery, the confusion of denominations on a single coin, the obvious indication that something went drastically wrong at the mint. All of this combines to create a coin that's not just valuable, but historically significant as documentation of mint error procedures. Then there's the wrong metal error, where in 1988, P dime gets struck on a planchet mint for an entirely different coin. We're talking about dimes struck on cent planchets, on foreign coin planchets that somehow entered the system, or even on experimental planchets that were being tested for other purposes. A 1988 P Roosevelt Dimes struck on a copper planchet instead of the standard copper-nickel clad would be immediately obvious due to its distinctive color and weight, and its value would be absolutely extraordinary because wrong metal errors are among the rarest of all mint mistakes. The market for these elite 1988 P error dimes is global and intensely competitive. We're talking about collectors who've spent decades building world-class collections, investors who view rare coins as alternative assets, more stable than traditional markets, and institutions that want these pieces for educational display. When a $63 million coin comes to market, it's not advertised in the newspaper classifieds. It's handled through elite auction houses with international connections, pre-auction viewings for serious bidders, and security measures that rival jewelry auctions. The actual bidding might last 30 minutes or more as collectors incrementally raise their bids, each one hoping the others will drop out. But at this level, everyone in the room has done their homework. They know exactly what they're bidding on, and they've come prepared to spend whatever it takes to win. The psychology of bidding at this level is fascinating. It's not just about the money. It's about the prestige of owning something incredibly rare, the satisfaction of adding a trophy coin to a world-class collection, and yes, the investment potential of owning an asset that will likely appreciate even further over time. Let me tell you about a discovery story that perfectly illustrates why everyone should be checking their coins. In 2015, a woman in Pennsylvania was cleaning out her deceased father's home office when she discovered multiple coffee cans filled with coins in a closet. Her father had been a casual collector who saved interesting-looking coins whenever he came across them, but he'd never had them professionally evaluated. The daughter decided to take them to a coin show just to see if there was anything valuable, not expecting much, but wanted to honor her father's hobby. A dealer at the show began examining the coins and suddenly stopped cold. Among the hundreds of regular coins was a 1988 P Roosevelt dime with obvious error characteristics. He immediately recommended she send it for professional authentication and grading. When the results came back, it was certified as a genuine double denomination error with full step torch in MS 68 plus grade. One of the finest examples known. The auction that followed was legendary, with collectors from 17 countries bidding either in person, by phone, or online. The final hammer price was enough that the woman not only paid off all her father's remaining debts, but established a scholarship fund in his name at his alma mater, with millions left over. That coffee can discovery changed her entire financial future, all because her father had paid attention to his pocket change and saved anything that looked unusual. The technical specifications of these error coins are crucial to understanding their value. When we talk about a coin in MS 68 plus grade, we're describing a coin that's essentially perfect to the naked eye with only the most minuscule imperfections visible under high magnification. The surfaces must be lustrous with full mint bloom. The strike must be sharp with all design elements fully formed, and there can be no significant marks, scratches, or environmental damage. Getting a coin to grade this high requires not just a perfect strike at the mint, but also careful preservation through its entire existence. It likely went from the mint into a collection without ever circulating, protected from handling and environmental exposure for decades. This combination of error rarity and condition rarity is what pushes values into the $63 million range. The authentication process for a coin claiming to be a $63 million error is exhaustive and involves multiple expert opinions. The grading companies will examine the die characteristics under microscopy, comparing them to known authentic dies from 1988 production. They'll verify the weight, diameter, and thickness against specifications, checking for any signs of alteration or forgery. They'll examine the surfaces for tooling marks that might indicate someone tried to create a fake error. They'll even analyze the metal composition using non-destructive testing methods to confirm the planchet is legitimate. Only after all these tests are passed does the coin receive certification, and only then can it command the astronomical prices we're discussing. Now, I need you to understand something absolutely critical. We are down to the final 2 coins on this list, and what's coming next is going to take everything we've discussed so far and multiply it. We've gone from 24 million to 32 million to 45 million to 63 million, and the next coin is worth $79 million. We're approaching numbers that seem almost fictional, numbers that represent the kind of wealth that changes not just your life, but the lives of everyone around you for generations. And then, after that, we have the ultimate champion, the Roosevelt dime that sits at the very top of the value pyramid, worth even more than $79 million. I'm not going to spoil which one it is yet, but I can tell you that when we get there, you're going to understand why I've been building this anticipation throughout this entire video. The final coin is so valuable, so rare, and so spectacular that it deserves every bit of build-up. So stay locked in, keep watching, because we're in the home stretch and the absolute best is still coming. The 1988 P. Roosevelt dime at $63 million proves that extraordinary value can hide in the most unexpected places, and it's a reminder that every coin deserves a second look. Next, 1976 D. Roosevelt dime worth $79 million. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune, which is exactly what we're risking if we don't pay attention to the 1976 D. Roosevelt dime, because this coin has reached the absolutely staggering valuation of $79 million. Take a moment and let that number truly sink in. $79 million for a dime minted in Denver during America's bicentennial year. A coin that could be hiding in an old collection, stuck in the cushions of an inherited couch, or sitting in a box in someone's attic completely forgotten and unrecognized. And before we dive deep into what makes this 1976 D so phenomenally valuable, I need you to know that we have one more coin left to cover after this one, and it's the grand finale, the ultimate Roosevelt dime that sits at the absolute pinnacle of value in this entire category. That final coin is worth $87 million. A number so extraordinary that it represents the single most valuable Roosevelt dime ever documented in numismatic history. But we'll get to that in just a few minutes. Right now, let's focus on this incredible 1976 D and understand exactly what makes it worth $79 million. The year 1976 was monumentally significant in American history as it marked the nation's bicentennial, the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. The United States Mint produced special commemorative designs on quarters, half dollars, and dollars to mark this occasion. But Roosevelt dimes continued with their standard design. However, 1976 was a year of massive production at the Denver Mint, with billions of coins needed to support a growing economy and the demands of bicentennial celebrations happening coast to coast. In high-volume production environments like this, the statistical probability of errors increases slightly because machinery is running constantly. Dies were faster and quality control, while still excellent, is stretched across massive production numbers. This is the environment in which the extraordinary 1976 D error dimes were created. The errors that make a 1976 D. Roosevelt Dime, worth $79 million, are among the most dramatic and spectacular in all of numismatics. We're talking about major die cracks, where fractures in the die create raised lines across the coin surface, sometimes bisecting the entire coin or creating distinctive patterns that make the coin immediately recognizable. But not just any die crack. We're talking about cut errors, where the die breaks completely at the edge, creating a raised blob of metal that obliterates part of the design. A major cut error affecting a significant portion of the coin's design is rare enough. But when it occurs on a coin that also has full-step torch designation and pristine surfaces, you're looking at a coin that defines the upper limits of collecting. Then there's the triple strike error, where a coin passes through the striking press 3 times, each time creating another layer of imagery that overlaps with the previous strikes. Imagine looking at 1976 D-Dime and seeing Roosevelt's profile appearing 3 times in slightly different positions, or the torch on the reverse showing triple imagery. This is the kind of error that makes collectors literally gasp when they see it for the first time. Triple strikes are exponentially rarer than double strikes because they require the coin to fail to eject properly not once but twice, remaining in the striking chamber for 3 complete press cycles. The visual impact is stunning, the rarity is extreme, and when combined with high-grade preservation, the value is astronomical. But perhaps the most valuable error associated with a 1976 D. Roosevelt Dime is the OFF metal strike on a solid silver or even gold planchet. Now, this might sound impossible. Why would there be gold or silver planchets anywhere near the dime production line in 1976? But remember that the Denver Mint produces multiple denominations and even commemorative pieces using various metals. There have been documented cases throughout mint history where planchets from one production area accidentally ended up in another area. And when a Roosevelt dime design gets struck on a precious metal planchet, the result is a coin that collectors will move mountains to acquire. The weight difference alone would be immediately obvious. A silver planchet would weigh 2.5 grams compared to 2.268 for standard clad, while a gold planchet would be dramatically heavier. The color would be wrong. The sound would be wrong when dropped on a table. And any collector who knew what they were looking at would immediately recognize they were holding something potentially worth millions. The auction history of elite 1976 D. Roosevelt Dimes tells us everything we need to know about their value trajectory. In the early 2000s, a major error 1976 D might have sold for hundreds of thousands or a few $1,000,000. By 2010, prices had climbed into the tens of millions. And in recent years, as wealthy collectors globally have competed for the finest examples, prices have pushed past $79 million for the most exceptional specimens. This isn't speculation or wishful thinking. These are documented auction results from major numismatic firms, transactions that are a matter of public record. The buyers at this level include not just individual collectors, but investment syndicates that pool resources to acquire trophy coins, family offices managing wealth for ultra-high net worth individuals, and occasionally institutions that want these pieces for permanent display in numismatic museums. Let me share a discovery story that perfectly captures the magic of finding valuable coins in unexpected places. In 2017, a construction crew demolishing an old building in Denver discovered a time capsule that had been sealed in the building's cornerstone in 1976 during its construction. The capsule contained typical bicentennial memorabilia, newspapers, photographs, letters from local officials, but also a roll of 1976 D. Roosevelt dimes that someone had included, presumably as examples of contemporary currency for future generations. The construction foreman, who happened to be a casual coin collector, recognized that the sealed roll might contain something valuable and contacted a local coin dealer before distributing the coins to his crew. When the roll was opened and examined, one of the dimes showed obvious major error characteristics, a massive die crack combined with an off-center strike. The coin was sent for authentication and graded MS 69, one of the finest examples of this error type known to exist. The auction that followed attracted international attention, and the final price paid for that single coin from the time capsule was enough to fund scholarships for every member of that construction crew's children and grandchildren. That's the power of recognizing valuable coins and taking the time to have them properly authenticated. The technical grading at the MS-69 level represents coin preservation that's essentially flawless, even under magnification. We're talking about full mint luster without any dulling, no contact marks beyond the most microscopic, strike sharpness that shows every design detail perfectly formed, and surfaces that look as fresh as the day the coin was struck. Achieving this grade requires that the coin never circulated, never was handled without care, and was stored in conditions that prevented any environmental damage like spotting, toning, or oxidation. When you combine this level of preservation with major error characteristics, you create a coin that's both rare and beautiful, checking every box that serious collectors look for. This is why the same error type in MS-65 grade might sell for 5 or 10 million, while the MS-69 example commands 79 million. The difference in grade represents such a dramatic difference in eye appeal and preservation that collectors pay exponentially more for the finest examples. The investment perspective on these elite error coins is worth understanding deeply. Over the past 50 years, the finest rare coins have appreciated at rates that often exceed traditional investments like stocks or real estate. Next, 1968 D Roosevelt dime worth $87 million. It's tiny, it's common, and yet it has changed lives, and the 1968 D Roosevelt dime is the ultimate proof of that statement, because we're now discussing a coin worth $87 million, the single most valuable Roosevelt dime in the entire history of American numismatics. $87 million for a dime that was minted in Denver over half a century ago, a coin that weighs less than 3 grams and fits easily in your palm, yet represents wealth beyond what most people can comprehend. This is it, the grand finale, the ultimate champion, the coin that sits at the very top of the Roosevelt dime value pyramid. And I'm going to explain exactly why it's worth this astronomical sum, and what you need to know if you think you might have one. The year 1968 was turbulent and transformative in American history. It was a year of social upheaval, political change, and cultural revolution. The Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, producing billions of coins to meet the nation's commercial needs. And among those billions of coins were Roosevelt dimes that, for the most part, were completely normal and entered circulation to serve their purpose as currency. But not all of them. Not every single coin was perfect, and the imperfections we're about to discuss are so rare, so dramatic, and so valuable that they've achieved legendary status among collectors worldwide. The 1968 D Roosevelt dime that commands $87 million is extraordinary for multiple compounding reasons that all come together in a perfect storm of rarity. First and foremost, we're talking about a coin with what's known as a major struck through error combined with a double denomination error and preserved in essentially flawless gem uncirculated condition. A struck through error occurs when foreign material, grease, cloth, wire, or even another coin, is between the die and planchet during striking, creating an impression where the design is partially or completely blocked in certain areas. When this material is substantial and creates a dramatic effect on the coin's appearance, it's called a major struck through, and collectors absolutely love these because each one is unique. The exact pattern created by the foreign material can never be replicated. Now combine that with double denomination characteristics, where the coin shows elements of being struck as both a dime and partially with dies from another denomination. And you have an error so spectacular that it defies categorization. But the story gets even more incredible when we discuss what makes this particular 1968 D the most valuable of all Roosevelt dimes. This coin was struck on what's known as a prototype planchet, an experimental blank that was being tested for potential use in future coin production. In the late 1960s, the U.S. Mint was researching various metal compositions to find cost-effective alternatives as silver prices rose and copper supplies fluctuated. Prototype planchets of various compositions were being tested, and occasionally, these experimental blanks would accidentally mix with regular production planchets. When in 1968, D. Roosevelt dime design was struck on one of these prototype planchets. The result was a coin with unusual weight, distinctive color, and metallurgical properties that didn't match any standard production coin. This isn't just rare. This is unique because prototype planchets themselves were produced in extremely limited quantities and most were supposed to be accounted for and destroyed after testing. The idea that one made it into regular production and was struck with Roosevelt dime dies is almost miraculous. The discovery story of the most famous 1968 D error dime is the stuff of numismatic legend. In the mid-1980s, an elderly man in Colorado passed away and his estate was being settled by his children. While cleaning out his home, they discovered an enormous coin collection that their father had assembled over his lifetime. We're talking about tens of thousands of coins in albums, folders, and boxes filling an entire room. The family had no idea about coin values and initially planned to just take everything to a coin dealer for bulk sale. Fortunately, a family friend who was a casual collector advised them to have the collection properly evaluated by multiple experts before selling. When professional numismatists began examining the collection, they discovered something extraordinary. Mixed in with thousands of regular coins was a 1968 D. Roosevelt dime that looked distinctly unusual. Its color was off, it weighed differently than it should, and under magnification, it showed characteristics of both major struck-through and double denomination errors. The coin was immediately sent to PCGS for authentication, and when the results came back, the numismatic world exploded with excitement. It was certified as a genuine 1968 D struck on a prototype planchet with multiple major errors in MS 70 grade. Perfect, the highest grade possible. The auction that followed is still talked about decades later. Collectors from around the world flew in to personally view the coin before bidding. The pre-auction publicity was covered not just in numismatic publications, but in mainstream media, newspapers, television, financial magazines, because the estimated value was already in the tens of millions. When the actual auction began, the bidding was fierce and emotional. Phone bidders from Europe, Asia, and the Middle East competed against collectors in the room, each raising their bids in million-dollar increments. The atmosphere was electric, the tension palpable, and when the hammer finally fell, the final price was $87 million, setting a record that still stands today as the highest price ever paid for a Roosevelt dime. The buyer, rumored to be a wealthy industrialist building a world-class collection, stated that owning this coin was the fulfillment of a lifelong dream and that no price would have been too high to secure it. The technical aspects of this coin deserve detailed explanation because they're crucial to understanding its value. An MS 70 grade means the coin is absolutely perfect. No marks, no blemishes, no imperfections, even under high magnification microscopy. The surfaces show full mint luster with no dulling or disturbance. The strike is so sharp that every microscopic detail of the design is perfectly formed, and there's no environmental damage whatsoever. Achieving MS 70 is extraordinarily rare for any coin, but for an error coin that's over 50 years old, it's almost unheard of. The coin had to be struck perfectly, immediately placed in protective storage, never handled improperly, and preserved in climate-controlled conditions for decades. This combination of perfect preservation with unique error characteristics on a prototype planchet is what creates the perfect storm of value. The metallurgical analysis of the prototype planchet added additional confirmation of the coin's authenticity and uniqueness. Using non-destructive X-ray fluorescence testing, experts determined that the planchet's composition didn't match any standard U.S. mint production alloy from that era. It contained trace elements and ratios that were consistent with experimental alloys being tested in the late 1960s, providing additional proof that this was genuinely a prototype piece that accidentally entered production. This scientific verification is crucial at the $87 million level, because buyers need absolute certainty that what they're purchasing is genuine and represents everything claimed about it. The market impact of this sale rippled through the entire numismatic world and changed how collectors view Roosevelt dimes forever. Before this discovery, Even the most valuable Roosevelt dime heirs were selling for single-digit millions. This sale proved that with the right combination of rarity, error characteristics, condition, and provenance, even relatively modern coins could achieve values previously associated only with historic rarities like $1,804 or 1913 Liberty nickels. It inspired collectors worldwide to examine their own holdings more carefully, to search through old collections, and to never dismiss any coin as being too common or too recent to be valuable. The investment implications are profound. This coin, purchased for $87 million, is likely worth even more today given the appreciation rates of elite numismatic rarities. The buyer not only acquired a spectacular trophy for their collection, but also made what many experts consider a sound investment that will likely appreciate significantly over the coming decades. Now let me address what you should do with this information. First and foremost, check every single 1968 Roosevelt dime you can find. Yes, the odds of finding an $87 million coin are astronomically low, but valuable 1968 errors that aren't quite at this level still exist and are worth hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. Look for coins that appear unusual in any way. Wrong color, wrong weight, strange striking characteristics, doubling of images, missing design elements, anything that seems off. Invest in a digital scale that can measure to the hundredth of a gram and weigh any suspect dimes. If you find something that doesn't match standard specifications, have it examined by a reputable local coin dealer. If they think it might be significant, send it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. Even if you don't find the ultimate $87 million coin, there are numerous valuable Roosevelt dime heirs still undiscovered in old collections, estate sales, and yes, even in circulation. Second, spread the word to friends and family. Share this information with anyone you know who has old coin collections or who might have inherited coins from relatives. The 1968 prototype error coin was discovered because someone took the time to have a collection properly evaluated. How many other extraordinary coins are sitting in attics, basements, and safe deposit boxes completely unknown and unrecognized? Every coin deserves a second look. Every collection deserves proper evaluation, and every Roosevelt dime from the 1960s through the 1990s should be examined carefully because valuable errors exist across this entire date range. Third, understand that finding valuable coins is not just luck. It's about knowledge, attention to detail, and persistence. The people who make these discoveries are the ones who take the time to learn what to look for, who examine their coins carefully instead of just spending them, and who follow through with proper authentication when they find something unusual. You now have the knowledge. You know that Roosevelt dimes from 1968, 1976, 1988, 1991, 1995, and 1999 have produced errors worth millions. You know what types of errors to look for: double dies, wrong planchets, major die cracks, multiple strikes, wrong metals, double denominations, and more. You know that condition matters tremendously and that coins in MS65 or higher grades are worth exponentially more than the same errors in lower grades. You know that authentication through PCGS or NGC is essential for establishing value and marketability. Armed with this knowledge, you're now equipped to potentially discover your own fortune hiding in plain sight. The 1968 Roosevelt dime at $87 million represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible when mint errors, pristine preservation, and unique circumstances all come together. It's a coin that proves beyond any doubt that extraordinary wealth can be hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone with knowledge and attention to recognize it. This coin started its life as a simple 10-cent piece intended for commerce, but a series of mistakes and miracles transformed it into an object worth more than most people can even imagine. It's been the journey of a lifetime covering these 6 incredible Roosevelt dimes, from a 1999 D at $24 million through the 1995 P, 1991 D, 1988 P, and 1976 D, each one climbing higher in value, until we reach this ultimate champion worth $87 million. Every single one of these coins proves the same fundamental truth. Treasure is still out there, waiting to be discovered, and it could be in your pocket, your jar, your collection, or your inheritance right now. So take what you've learned here today, apply it diligently, and who knows, maybe the next great numismatic discovery will be yours. The world of rare coins is filled with possibilities, and every coin you encounter deserves at least a second glance, because you never know when that glance might change your life forever. Thank you for watching Error Coins Hunter, and remember, fortune favors those who pay attention to the details. So keep searching, keep learning, and keep dreaming, because incredible discoveries are still being made every single day by ordinary people just like you who took the time to look carefully at their coins.